Welcome back. All right, so my last video ended up being a lot longer than I had anticipated. That's where me not having a script comes into effect, and so had to take a little bit of a break after that one, get my voice back, and here we are to talk about Sidney Crosby. Now, right now, there's a lot of articles and a lot of discussion about Sidney Crosby. There's speculation. Elliot Friedman this week giving a little bit of clarity on what is apparently going on. But again, this is a situation that could change as soon as tomorrow. But it feels like it's changed a couple of times this summer. So, Sidney Crosby, I want to look back on the last time he signed an extension, which was 12 years ago. June 28th of 2012, a year before his contract was done, which is a key here too. He signs an extension. He agrees to the extension on June the 28th. He couldn't officially sign it until July the 1st. And that's exactly a year before he was going to become I believe it was just a restricted free agent in 2012 because he's young at the time. So he agrees to a 12-year extension worth $104.4 million. The cap hit $8.7 million because he's very superstitious. And 87, very important numbers to him, not just on the back of his jersey, but on his contract, which is why the speculation's been 8.7 million probably remains his cap hit for next year. Interestingly enough, at the time he signs it, the 2012-2013 season was on the way. It was 14.5% of the cap. Keep in mind it wasn't implemented. At the time it was implemented, the following season, 13.5% of the cap. And that, boys and girls, is why you sign somebody a year ahead of time. You don't know what the salary cap's going to do, but it's probably going to go up. And we know that next year's cap is expected to go up probably by another $4 million. So we quibble and squabble over who's worth what now, but there's the possibility that the salary cap could be in the $100 million range as soon as 2 years from now. That's been the discussion point, and that there could be just explosive growth in the salary cap. So, could be fun. Going into this year, the contract signed by Sidney Crosby is now 9.88% of the cap. So that's how the contracts are supposed to work. We look at them now. We say, that's a lot of money. I don't know how they're going to afford other players. And years down the road, we say, wow, that contract looks pretty good right now. So that's when the superstars sign those contracts. That's what they're supposed to do. Now, a 12-year contract, if that's eyebrow raising for you, they didn't have. I think the length of contracts, I think it was 2015 that they changed that, 2014, somewhere around there. And of course, don't ask Canuck fans about the penalty if a long-term contract isn't played out. And there was some concern when Crosby signed this, like, is it insured? And general manager Ray Shero wouldn't answer the question. And it was a valid question at the time because Crosby was only 1 year removed from post-concussion syndrome. That summer that he signs this contract, he was working out a lot. And he was in good shape, and he felt really good about the following season. And it was really, really important that the Pittsburgh Penguins made sure he got signed, and of course for them that Crosby's healthy at the time he signs it. And all signs pointed to yes on this, but it was definitely seen as risky. Crosby going through concussions early on in his career, there was a lot of discussion about whether or not he might be like an Eric Lindros, where, yeah, a great player, great start, but concussions during his prime years handicapped the rest of his career. Crosby has been remarkably healthy in recent seasons, played every single game this past year, and played really well. So all the fears that were in place back, say, in 2012 and before that, they've been allayed. Now, at the time, he took what was seen as below market value. He could have asked for league max, but he took below market value. He took less than Ovechkin was making with the Caps. That was certainly a point back and forth, whether or not Ovechkin was greedy or Crosby was taking too little money. This was a conversation point. But he did it so the Penguins could sign players. They had certainty of how much money they'd have for that coming season and beyond, right? So when you're going to sign a free agent, it's usually 4 or 5 year deals, this kind of thing. You would know how much you're paying Sid a year ahead of time. It makes it easier to budget out and figure out who you're going to sign for what for the 2012-2013 season. Now, one quote that I wanted to use from an article I found on this is Sid wanted to be a Penguin forever. You sign a 12-year contract when you're in your mid-20s, early 20s. It looks like you're going to be there forever, right? 35, 36, 37. Who's going to play to that age? Again, considering the injuries, the concussions, it would have been understandable for people to think, I'll probably play till he's in his early 30s, and then who knows if his body will give out. Now, Crosby was the youngest cup-winning captain in 2009. So 2012, he already had, I think it was a Hart Trophy, Lester Pearson or Lindsay, whenever that changed. He was seen as the best player in the game, and right now he is seen as the most complete player in the game, which is a whole term that is rife with arguments. Because I guarantee Florida fans are going to go, no, Barkov. That's Barkov slander. Did you hear that? THG just slandered Barkov. I'm just saying. The players say Crosby's the most complete player in the game, and I kind of trust the guys who are out there trying to play against him or play with him and watch him play. But regardless of that, Crosby could have got more than the 8.7. He didn't. He could have taken a shorter term and hit the market, say, 4 or 5 years ago. He didn't. He wanted to be a Penguin. And there's never been any indication from Crosby he wants to go anywhere else. But what Crosby's staring down right now is, this is probably his last contract. And it's different than it was in 2012. In 2012, the Penguins were in their prime. And guys like Letang, Malkin, Crosby, they were at their best. They were in their prime. And it looked like this could go on for a long time. They won the Cup in 2016 and 2017. Good examples of this was a team that was built to win. And they had other years between 2009 and 2016 where they probably should have won, but something fell apart. Sometimes Fleury's goaltending didn't quite get them through. And Fleury's seen as like a first ballot Hall of Famer now. So it's interesting looking back how things are perceived differently than they are now. But this is likely his final contract. And for the Penguins, they've missed the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. And does he want to spend those last few years on a team that might make the playoffs, but go out in the first round? They haven't been out of the first round since 2018. Or might he want a chance to go to a team where he has a chance to win a cup? So let's say July the 1st rolls around. He still hasn't signed a contract with Pittsburgh. He's mulling it over. And Colorado makes a pretty sweet deal. Pretty sweet offer. And he knows he can be the number 2 center behind Nathan McKinnon. Come on. It writes itself. Now, I don't think Penguin fans would begrudge him for that, right? Because I feel like Crosby has legendary status in Pittsburgh that would allow for, if he decided, I want a chance at one more cup and I feel like Colorado's my chance, I don't think he'd get booed by Pittsburgh fans. I don't think they'd hate on him for it. Now, there are some caveats to that, but I'll come back to it. So early in the summer, the speculation was they're close to an extension. I remember reporting on that the first week of July. Yep, they're close to an extension, and it made sense. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I could see that. I could see him right away, July the 1st, sitting down with Kyle Dubas and going, let's get her done. Malkin sticking around, Letang sticking around. Me too. I'm going to stick around and see how this turns out. August, though, the reports were there were no formal discussions. So there's been some, conflict in the reporting, right? No formal talks. Said he just hadn't decided how much longer he wanted to play. So there's a question of how much longer he wants to play. He has just turned 37 years of age. So that's a valid thing for him to be thinking about. He's going to turn 38 next summer. How many more years can he put on his body before it gives in? Or how many more years does he want to play before he retires and finds out what post-playing life is like? And it is valid. I mean, people want to spend time with their family. They want to travel. And they just want that break. When all the speculation about Patrice Bergeron potentially coming out of retirement to play for Boston was out there, and he shut that down. I have never seen anything more convincing than Bergeron just seeming so happy with his decision to retire. So happy with the idea that he didn't have to do it anymore. And I wonder if a veteran like Crosby sees that and hears that from somebody like Bergeron and thinks, someday that'll be me, and I'll know when I'm ready, right? Players know when they're ready to go. And I always feel bad for when players aren't ready to go and NHL teams are like, we're not signing them. But for guys of Crosby's stature, and definitely in Bergeron's case as well, there will always be contract offers. Almost no matter how old they are. At 50 years of age, if Bergeron was like, I think I'd like to play a couple of games for Boston, they'd be like, we'll sign you, go out on the ice, skate a couple of games. Sure. Now, Friedman reports this week, and 32 Thoughts being out there, people are going to pay attention. And he's reporting that Sid's mulling over whether to sign any of the multiple offers Kyle Dubas has given him. So my guess is Kyle Dubas and Sidney Crosby have agreed on something up front. Maybe it's the $8.7 million cap hit. Maybe Crosby has said, you know what, I'll stay at that cap hit. And so Kyle might have said, okay, if you want to play for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, there's your contract offers. I'm going to walk away. One thing with Kyle Dubas, and I know there's a lot of detractors with Kyle Dubas, he doesn't usually have a problem getting guys signed. And he seems to be a pretty good negotiator. Now, we can talk about the cap hits some other time. This is Crosby's contract. Cap hit's not an issue. So now it's just a matter of maybe it's term, maybe it's no trade, no movement clause. But again, it's Sidney Crosby. Why wouldn't you give him a no movement clause? So I'm guessing all the contracts have no movement clauses because it's Sidney freaking Crosby. You kind of got to give that to him just out of the fact it's Sidney Crosby, right? I do wonder if this goes into the season, if the Penguins have a slow start and we get close to the trade deadline, where's the breaking point? Because for Kyle Dubas, he has to look at the team's future, right? And if Crosby's kind of, I don't know, then you'd kind of have to make a deal, right? But my guess is Crosby will sign, is my guess. I think it's a matter of how long. And I think when the signing comes out, we will probably know that that'll be it. I would not be surprised to see Crosby say, I'm signing this deal for, say, 3 years. I'm signing this 3-year extension with Pittsburgh, and that is where I will mark the end of my career. Because if there's a guy who can play into his 40s, it's Sid. Sid can play into his 40s. Sure. Absolutely no problem. I don't think, anyways. Which, again, is weird considering where we were back in 2012 with, so should they, how much insurance is on this contract? Like, is the team covered if he can't play? That's not even a consideration anymore, is it? Just remarkable conditioning by Sidney Crosby, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out. So, let me know your thoughts. Penguins fans, how many years do you think Crosby takes? Do you think he signs? And if he doesn't, and if we get to the trade deadline, and let's say Pittsburgh's 8 points out of the playoffs, there's 4 teams between them and the playoffs. Do you consider trading him or not? There's no wrong answer. You can look at Crosby's legacy and say, no, we keep him for the rest of the season. It's Sid. Or we got to think of the future of the team. We'd have to consider trading him. We'd have to trade him. It's an interesting question. I think we'll have some idea of where things are headed before the regular season starts. I don't think this is going to drag out much longer. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Before my voice gets any more scratchy, I'll close her up. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.